Hi everyone, following the introductory video to the calibrator, we have now loaded a log of data. Now, before we move on to the next step, let me show you a little tool once we've just finished loading data. Is an easy way to go and explore data. And so that actually shows you what data is in your log, what the sign conventions of your log, and I think it will be quite helpful to double check some of the conventions that we had specified in the log. For instance, so we've got this window pops up. We can select what variable we want to look at. Currently we're looking at heel, and it's drawing a bunch of points on a true and angle versus true and speed graph. Each single dot corresponds to 1 point in the log, and then the calibrator has created kind of bubbles around accumulation of lot of similar heel values at a similar true and speed and true and angle, which is why you might have overlapping bubbles. Calibrator found that there was actually kind of 3 different modes in this area of around 9 knots of wind and upwind. So that's nice, and it's a nice and quick way to check your sign convention. For instance, here we can absolutely see that when we're sailing on starboard tack, the heel numbers in the log are positive. So that's nice. We could do that maybe for have a check at what leeway says. Leeway is positive when we are sailing upwind on starboard, so that's correct. There's a couple of little controls you could play with here. You could say only show me when the boat was actually sailing properly with a minimum polar percentage of around 90, and I refresh that and there's a few more. So that's very useful, and also note that you can access this window through this button here, but anywhere else past this page there will also be a Tools Data Explore menu, so you can always get back to that at any point during your analysis. Right, the log is loaded. Let's click Next. We now need to help calibrate a little bit, do a little bit of pre-processing before we can actually get into the calibration. So one thing that we will be interested in is looking, for example, for calibrating the speedo. We want to find straight lines where the boat was steady. So there's a similar concept as in race replay. We've got all these phases. So you can see upwind is blue, so the wind is actually coming from down here. This is a nice little track that you can play around. And the way these were created were using these default settings. So for instance, we've asked it, so we're saying that the phases are 20 seconds long. If you remember, that's something that was in the boat configuration at the very beginning. And during every one of those 20-second phases, we don't want to be more than 10 degrees away from the target true and angle. We also don't want to have a target boat speed which is too low, and we can specify maximum standard deviation for boat speed and heading so that it was in fact straight line. Similar concepts for downwind and for reaching, and in fact I can show you that we have a couple of pink phases here. Probably the boat was over ley line getting to this top mark down here, and then we've got a bit of a dog leg. If we don't want to look at reaching data, one easy way is to say do not tolerate any movement in the boat speed, and automatically it has removed all those phases. So we get a little stats table here telling us how many phases it's found upwind, reaching, and downwind on port and starboard, and also what were the main criteria for excluding some of the phases. So that will give you an indication, if you read the fine lines, of why maybe you were too strict on those. Nevertheless, this tool is still a bit more basic than race replay, but there's a nice little hack around that. Now that I created those phases in the calibrator, I can actually save them to file. So I'm going to save them here and overwrite this file here. And now I can go to my race replay, which I've launched with my yet to calibrate log, but at least we have data, and I can actually load the phases that were made by calibrator. I can load them here. So let's do that now. Load from event or phases file, load those phases. And now the neat thing is that race replay does have a whole bunch of tools to add and remove some of the phases. For instance, we could, for instance, bring up a VMG graph upwind and maybe find a couple of outliers here in the 6 knot range. Maybe these are not very interesting to look at in terms of calibration, so I might delete this one. I might as well delete this one, looks like a bit of an outlier. Now once I'm done, I can resave again and I'll overwrite. So save to file. And I'll just overwrite the one that was created by Calibrator. And now I can go back in my Calibrator and then tell it, instead of using this algorithm, please use phases that I made in Race Replay, in which case I'll go and load this exact file which I just saved in Race Replay. And now I've got much better phases cleaned and that could have been in fact designed from the start in Race Replay with all the agility that Race Replay has to create and filter phases. Now we're good. I'm happy with my 323 phases and I'll click on next. Now the next step, in order to calibrate the wind properly, we're obviously going to be looking at the different maneuvers. So Calibrator has detected a bunch of maneuvers. There's already one that it's excluded, but we will still have to go through the same process as we do in Race Replay and move. So we've got 2 graphs here showing me boat speed and true wind angle, and we also have a little chart down here with a couple of numbers. And that should help me. I can zoom in with the mouse and the control keys. There's a whole bunch of tools I can play with. And now I'm going to go over each one of those and make sure that I find steady straight line. So here's the tack in the middle, before and after. So steady boat speed, steady true wind angle. I do tolerate that true wind angle might not be even, because that's probably what we're hunting. We are hunting miscalibrations. But what I do want though is to make sure the boat speed was even on each side, because if that is not the case, then there's a strong chance that the true wind angle, there's no reason why the true wind angle should be the same. It could be that there's wind shear, it could be that the sea state is not perfectly aligned and that on one tack you're sailing faster than the other, faster, lower maybe than on the other tack. In that case, that is going to be an issue when I try to correct the MHU offset, because when I do that, I will be looking at making the true wind angle symmetric. So if I know they are expected to be asymmetric because of sea state, then I probably would not use those. So this one I'm not going to use. And then I'm going to go for each of those. This one is a tack. We reached a relatively similar boat speed here. Maybe the boat was still accelerating a little bit. We could tolerate 0.3 knots difference. There's quite a bit of delta, and that could be calibration issues. So there we go. This one is clearly no good. There are some shortcuts for you, for the geeks out there. You can click on the function key F2 and F3 to move from one to the other. And I can also click on the V key to tell it that it's invalid or not. This one is probably not quite valid. We're getting to a bottom mark, probably not ideal. This one, the boat speed is clearly way different. Let me check if it doesn't go back up to speed. Way different. It looks like we were maybe over sailing really low before the tack, maybe, or something must have happened here. So this guy I'm not going to use. And we will have to do the process for all those tacks and jibes. When we click next, all these tacks and jibes will be remembered and saved to a little SQLite database, which is in the Calibrator folder. Once we've done that, we're ready to start calibrating.